He told me it was just for taxes, that signing the house over to his name would help the family. But deep down, I knew something was off. The way he looked at me, the way he rushed the paperwork. I didn't want to believe my husband could betray me until I discovered the woman he was planning our future with. And it wasn't me. That's when I realized he wasn't just trying to take my house. He was trying to erase me. It's just for tax purposes, Tom said, his tone softening as he noticed my hesitation. You're always talking about being smart with our finances, Caitlin. This is the best move for our family. He reached across the counter and took my hand, but there was something off about his touch. His fingers didn't quite wrap around mine the way they used to, and I could detect a slight tremor in his voice. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the papers he'd slid across our granite countertop. My heart hammered in my chest as the house transfer documents seemed to mock me with their official letterhead against the white surface. The twins, Emma and Ethan, were finally asleep upstairs after a long day, and here I was, facing what felt like an ultimatum from my husband of 4 years. My name is Caitlin Wilson. I'm 38 years old, and I'm a physician at Houston Methodist Hospital. 2 years before I met Tom, I'd bought this beautiful Victorian house in the Heights neighborhood using savings from my residency years and careful planning. Now, standing in my dream kitchen, one I'd renovated myself, I was being pressured to sign away my biggest investment. If you really cared about our marriage, you'd understand why this makes sense, Tom insisted, pushing the papers closer to me. Between your crazy hospital hours and constant exhaustion, I'm the one holding this family together. His words stung, but something in his tone made me hesitate. There was an edge to it I hadn't heard before. I glanced at the baby monitor on the counter, watching our 2-year-old twins sleeping soundly in their cribs. They looked just like me, with dark curls and olive skin. They were the reason I worked double shifts at the hospital, wanting to ensure they had every opportunity in life. Tom had never seemed to understand that my dedication to my career wasn't about ambition. It was about providing for our children's future. I don't know, Tom, I said, pulling my hand away. This house, it's my security. I bought it before we were married. As soon as the words left my mouth, I saw something flash across his face. Anger, frustration. Whatever it was, it disappeared quickly, replaced by a look of practiced concern. That night, as I lay in bed, his words kept echoing in my mind. But something else echoed too. A quiet voice of warning I couldn't silence. The next morning, as I got ready for my shift, something about Tom's behavior nagged at me. He'd been acting differently lately, more distant, spending extra hours at his marketing firm, constantly checking his phone. I'd brushed it off as work stress, but now, combined with his sudden push about the house, my medical instincts were telling me something wasn't right. I dropped your jacket off at the dry cleaners, Tom said as I rushed around the kitchen, trying to pack the twins' daycare bags while eating a piece of toast. You can thank me later. His smile was forced, and he barely looked up from his phone. Just 6 months ago, he would have been helping with the bags and making sure I had a proper breakfast before my shift. I watched him as I strapped Emma and Ethan into their car seats. There was a spring in his step that hadn't been there in years. He'd even started going to the gym again, small changes that seemed innocent enough on their own, but together painted a picture I wasn't sure I wanted to see. At work, between patients, I called my friend Na, who worked in real estate law. Something feels off, I told her, ducking into an empty exam room. He's pushing hard for this transfer, saying it's for tax purposes, but… Tax purposes? Na interrupted. Transferring the house to his name alone wouldn't give you any tax benefits. If anything, it would complicate things since you bought it before marriage. My blood ran cold. I'd been so busy with work and the twins that I hadn't done my due diligence. Tom had counted on that, hadn't he? Listen to me carefully, Na continued, her voice serious. Don't sign anything. I don't want to alarm you, but I've seen this before. Men don't usually push for property transfers unless they're planning something. That afternoon, during a brief break between patients, I did something I'd never done before. I checked our phone records. Tom had been making frequent calls to the same number for months. My hands trembled as I did a reverse lookup, and a name appeared: Destiny Martinez. A quick social media search revealed a beautiful woman in her mid-20s whose check-ins matched Tom's late nights at work. My stomach churned as I scrolled through her photos, stopping at one from 2 weeks ago. She was at a real estate office, captioned, "Big changes coming, new chapter, blessed." I closed my office door and sat in silence, my mind racing. Years of medical training had taught me to trust my instincts when something felt wrong. And now those same instincts were telling me to protect myself and my children. That evening I left work early for the first time in months. Instead of picking up the twins from daycare, I drove straight to a discreet electronics store Nina had recommended. The elderly man behind the counter barely blinked when I explained what I needed: a high-quality recording device small enough to hide in my kitchen. "Protect yourself," he said quietly, showing me how to operate it. The best evidence is in their own words. I got home before Tom, setting up the device and starting dinner like it was any other night. When he walked in, he seemed surprised to see me there. "No emergencies at the hospital today?" he asked, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. "I thought we could talk more about the house transfer," I said, stirring the pasta sauce. "I've been thinking about what you said." I watched his reflection in the kitchen window as his face lit up with poorly concealed triumph. "I knew you'd come around," he said, coming up behind me. "You're making the right choice, Kate. This is what's best for our family." The way he emphasized family made my skin crawl. Over dinner, I let him talk, recording every word as he explained his elaborate plan for how the transfer would benefit us. Each lie was careful and calculated, and I realized with sickening clarity that he'd been planning this for months. After putting the twins to bed, I sat in their dim nursery, watching them sleep. Emma clutched her favorite stuffed giraffe, and Ethan had kicked off his blanket as usual. The sense of betrayal settled heavily in my chest, but now I was prepared. Looking at the peaceful faces of my twins, a surge of protective rage rose within me. Whatever game Tom was playing, he hadn't anticipated a mother's instinct to protect her children. Over the next few days, I worked with careful precision. I followed Nina's advice, making copies of all our financial documents, securing new credit cards in my name alone, and transferring my share of our savings into a separate account. Each night, I lay awake next to Tom, listening to his steady breathing, and wondered when my husband had turned into a stranger. A week later, Tom came home with the final transfer papers, already signed by him. "Just your signature," he said, sliding the papers across the counter, the same spot where everything had started. "Then we can put all of this behind us." I picked up the pen, my hand steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. Tom watched me intently as I hovered over the signature line. In that moment, I saw everything clearly: his impatience, his barely concealed excitement, and the way he kept glancing at his phone, as if expecting a message. "Actually," I said, putting the pen down, "I think we need to talk about Destiny first." The colour drained from his face so quickly I almost laughed, but this wasn't funny. This was the beginning of a war, and I was armed with evidence, determination, and a mother's fury. "What are you talking about?" Tom sputtered, but his face had already betrayed him. His practiced composure crumbled as he instinctively reached for his phone. "Who is Destiny?" I asked, pulling out my own phone and scrolling through the screenshots I'd carefully collected. "Destiny Martinez, 26 years old, works at your firm. You've been having lunch with her at Lorenzo's 3 times a week for the past 4 months. The same restaurant where you proposed to me, by the way." "Nice touch." Tom's expression shifted from shock to anger. "You've been spying on me?" "Protecting myself," I corrected, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Just like you've been protecting our tax situation with this house transfer, right?" Tom sat down heavily on one of the kitchen stools, running his hands through his hair, a nervous habit I once found endearing. It's not what you think. Really? I shot back, because I think you're trying to steal my house and move your girlfriend in. I played the recording from earlier that week, his voice filling the kitchen as he assured Destiny that everything was going according to plan, and they'd be together soon. The twins' monitor crackled with Emma's soft whimpers. Tom glanced upstairs, and for a moment, I saw guilt flash across his face. But it wasn't guilt about betraying his family, it was guilt about getting caught. "You don't understand," he started, his tone shifting to the one he used with difficult clients. "Things between us haven't been right for a long time. You're always at the hospital. The twins barely know you." "Don't you dare!" I cut him off, my voice low but sharp. "Don't you dare use our children to justify this. I work to give them a future. What's your excuse for destroying their present?" He stood up suddenly, his face flushing with anger. "You think you're so clever, don't you? The brilliant doctor, always one step ahead, but you have no idea what it's like living in your shadow, being the guy who married up. Destiny appreciates me. She understands." "Understands that you're trying to steal my house?" I interrupted. "The house I bought before I met you? The house where our children took their first steps?" "Our lawyer," he started. "Your lawyer," I corrected. "The one you've been meeting with behind my back. Nar warned me about him. He has quite the reputation for helping husbands hide assets during divorces." Tom's face went pale. "You talk to Nar?" "I talk to a lot of people, Tom. I may be busy with work, but I'm not stupid." I pulled out another stack of papers, bank statements, phone records, emails I'd recovered. "Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out? That I'd just sign away my children's home because you batted your eyes and mentioned taxes?" The baby monitor crackled again, this time with Ethan's cry joining his sister's. Tom moved toward the stairs, but I blocked his path. "Don't bother," I said coldly. "I'll take care of our children. You can take care of explaining to Destiny why her new chapter is going to have a different setting than she planned." As I headed upstairs to comfort the twins, I heard Tom's phone ping, probably Destiny wondering why her knight in shining armor was running late. Let her wonder. I had more important things to focus on, like protecting my children's future from the man who was supposed to help me build it. "This isn't over," Tom called after me as I reached the top of the stairs. "No, Tom," I said, pausing and looking down at him from the landing. The huge mistake was thinking I wouldn't protect what's mine. I turned away from his enraged face and headed to the nursery, where Emma and Ethan needed me. The next morning I woke to find Tom gone. He'd probably spent the night with Destiny. As I got the twins ready for daycare, my phone buzzed with a text from Nar. He's been to see his lawyer. Time to move fast. I had already prepared for this. During my lunch break, I met with James Cooper, the divorce attorney Nar had recommended. His office was warm and welcoming, nothing like the cold corporate environments I'd expected. "Dr. Wilson," he said, reviewing the evidence I'd gathered. "I have to say, I'm impressed. Most clients come to me after the fact. You've given us everything we need to get ahead of this." "I had good instincts," I replied, watching as he examined the recordings. "Better than good," he smiled. "These recordings are clear evidence of intent to defraud. And the paper trail of his meetings with that other attorney? Well, let's just say judges don't look kindly on premeditated asset hiding." As we discussed strategy, my phone lit up with messages from Tom. "We need to talk. You're being unreasonable. Think about the twins." Each message grew more desperate than the last. James nodded. "He's realizing his plan is falling apart. Be prepared. This is when they often get nasty." That evening, when Tom finally came home, his nice guy facade had completely crumbled. "You think you're so smart," he sneered, storming into the kitchen where I was feeding the twins their dinner. "But you've just ruined everything. Destiny and I could have been reasonable about this, let you stay in the guest house, keep things civil for the kids." I couldn't help but laugh, which only enraged him further. "The guest house? In my own home? Our home?" Tom shouted, making Emma jump in her high chair. Dada mad? Ethan asked, his little face scrunching up with worry. It's just tiredness, sweetheart, I soothed, shooting Tom a warning look. Daddy's leaving for a while. Like hell I am, Tom growled, though his voice was quieter now, conscious of the twins watching. Actually you are, I said calmly, pulling out another document from my bag. This is a temporary restraining order my attorney filed this morning after you threatened me via text. You have 1 hour to pack your things. Tom's face went ashen. You can't do this, he whispered. I already did, I replied, meeting his eyes steadily. Destiny's welcome to you, but this house, the one you tried to steal from your children, that's mine. And if you think I won't fight you with everything I have, you clearly never knew me at all. He stood there, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, as the reality of his situation sank in. The unravelling of his perfect plan was written all over his face. An hour later, I watched from the nursery window as Tom loaded his bags into his car. He kept looking back at the house as if he still couldn't believe his plan had backfired so spectacularly. Behind me, the twins played quietly with their blocks, blissfully unaware of what was happening. Bye-bye, Emma asked, noticing me at the window. Yes, sweetheart, I replied, pulling her close and breathing in her baby shampoo scent, letting it ground me. Daddy's going bye-bye for a while. The next few weeks blurred by in a whirlwind of legal meetings and hospital shifts. Tom launched a full-scale attack through his lawyer, demanding half of everything, including the house. But James, my attorney, was ready for him. Did you see his face when we presented the recordings in court? James asked, chuckling during one of our meetings. He thought he was so clever, but he never considered you might be smarter. The evidence was damning. Not only had we proven his intent to defraud me of my premarital asset, but we also uncovered something even more disturbing. Tom had been embezzling from his marketing firm to fund his lavish dates with Destiny. Our forensic accountant had found everything. James spread out the bank statements across his desk. He's been cooking the books for months, probably to maintain the lifestyle he promised Destiny, he explained. The irony wasn't lost on me. All those times Tom had complained about living in my shadow, about feeling inferior to my success, he had been creating his own downfall. When Tom's firm discovered the embezzlement, they pressed charges. Destiny, it turned out, had no interest in a boyfriend facing criminal charges. She dumped him via text. I know, James said, grinning, because he showed up at the house drunk one night, waving his phone, begging to come home. You did this to me, he shouted from the front yard, forcing me to call the police. You've ruined everything. As the officers led him away, I felt a strange mix of pity and relief. The man I had married, the father of my children, had become someone I didn't recognize, or maybe he had always been that person and I'd been too busy to notice. The divorce was finalized faster than I expected. Tom, facing legal troubles with his firm, couldn't afford a lengthy court battle. He signed away any claim to the house in exchange for more favorable custody arrangements, supervised visits twice a week. You've handled this incredibly well, Na told me over coffee, weeks after everything had settled. Most people would have fallen apart. I watched Emma and Ethan playing in my backyard, my house, my victory. I had to stay strong for them, I said. And honestly, Tom underestimating me was his biggest mistake. And Destiny? Na asked, curious. Any idea what happened to her? I smiled, remembering the last bit of gossip I'd heard. Apparently, she's dating her real estate agent now, the one who was supposed to help her move into my house. We both laughed at the irony. Later that night, as I tucked the twins into bed, Ethan asked, Mama sad? No, baby, I said, kissing his forehead. Mama's not sad at all. And for the first time in months, I truly meant it. The aftermath of my divorce from Tom brought unexpected blessings. The biggest surprise wasn't that I could manage everything on my own. I'd always been capable of that. It was discovering how much easier life became without the constant strain of Tom's deception weighing on me. My career flourished without his subtle undermining and passive-aggressive comments about my hours. I found a renewed passion for my work and was promoted to Chief of Emergency Medicine, something Tom had always said would be impossible while raising twins. The twins adjusted better than I had feared. At first, I worried about how they'd cope with the changes, but children are remarkably resilient. Their supervised visits with Tom became less frequent as his legal troubles mounted. Eventually, he took a plea deal for the embezzlement charges and moved to Dallas after serving his sentence. Destiny, I heard through mutual acquaintances, had moved on to another wealthy target. Sometimes I wondered if she ever realized how close she'd come to being trapped in Tom's web of lies. In a way, she had dodged a bullet, though I doubted she saw it that way. My house, the one Tom had tried so hard to take from me, became a true haven. I renovated the twins' rooms, planted a garden, and created the home I'd always envisioned. Every mortgage payment felt like a victory, a reminder of how I'd protected what was mine. Nah teased me about dating again, but I was content focusing on my children and career. There would be time for romance later. For now, I was enjoying the peace that came with knowing I had not only survived Tom's betrayal, but emerged stronger. One quiet evening, as I sat on my porch watching Emma and Ethan play in our front yard, I reflected on how different life had become. The twins were racing around, their laughter echoing through the neighborhood. It was the same yard where Tom had stood that night, drunk and raging, about how I had ruined his life. I'd recently heard through the hospital grapevine that Tom and Destiny had briefly reconnected in Dallas, only to split again when she discovered he was still on probation and working as a junior copywriter at a small agency. His fall from grace had been spectacular. From marketing executive to convicted felon, from family man to cautionary tale. The irony wasn't lost on me. His desperate grab for my house had cost him everything: his career, his freedom, and, most importantly, his relationship with his children. The twins now barely remembered their daily life with him. He had become the dad they saw occasionally on weekends, always trying too hard with expensive gifts and forced enthusiasm. "Mama, look!" Emma called out proudly, showing me a cartwheel while Ethan clapped. These were the moments that mattered. Not the house, not the victory over Tom's schemes, but the simple joy of watching my children grow and thrive. A few days ago, I received a letter from Tom full of apologies and regrets. I filed it away without responding. Some bridges once burned shouldn't be rebuilt. Instead, I focused on building new ones, strengthening my bonds with my children, my career, and, most importantly, my self-respect.